Prime Minister Andrew Holness and the Ministry of Education are under fire as the Jamaica Teaching Council JTC Bill sparks major backlash from the Jamaica Teachers Association JTA and the Caribbean Union of Teachers CTU. JTA President Dr. Mark Smith didn't hold back, calling the bill a betrayal and warning it could destroy teacher morale across Jamaica. But is this really about professionalizing the sector, or is it about tightening government control over education? In this video, we break it all down. What's really inside the JTC bill? Why are teachers and unions rejecting it? Is this a part of a larger pattern of centralizing power? And what does it mean for students, parents, and the future of education in Jamaica? Stay tuned for expert analysis and the political conflict. Subscribe for more breakdowns of Jamaican politics, corruption, and public policy. Did Prime Minister Andrew Holness just declare war on Jamaica's teachers? The JTC bill has teachers fuming, unions rebelling, and the JTA president calling it a full-blown betrayal. But what if I told you this bill could secretly reshape the entire education system forever? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly who's playing chess and who's getting played. The problem. Let's set the stage. The Jamaica Teaching Council bill, a 20-year legislative zombie. It's been in and out of parliament like a soap opera villain, dodging consensus, sparking outrage, and now finally crawling back into the headlines. But now it's armed and dangerous. Enter Dr. Mark Smith, current JTA president and low-key resistance leader of Jamaican teachers. On the other hand, Dr. Andrew Holness, Prime Minister, former Education Minister, and now, according to critics, the man with the red pen, ready to professionalize teaching, whatever that means. The JTC bill won't fix education, said Dr. Smith, standing boldly at the JTA's Professional Development Day like Morpheus in the Matrix. It's not reform, it's regulation. Let's pause. Imagine being a teacher in Jamaica, all ready to juggle overcrowded classrooms, poor pay, no chalk, and now the government says, you know what you need? More bureaucracy. The plan unfolds. So what's in this controversial bill? On paper, a national registry for teachers, standards for training, professional accountability. In practice, the JTA argues it's a chokehold disguised as a handshake. Only 6 of its 70-plus council members are JTA-affiliated teachers. Dr. Smith called it a betrayal. Dr. Winsome Gordon of the JTC clapped back like y'all were at the table from day one. But wait, plot twist, 60% of the JTC are teachers, according to Gordon, just not JTA teachers. So Dr. Winsome Gordon, JTC executive, just make a statement that was disingenuous at best and misleading at worst, cause those 60% of teachers will make up the JTC, they are not connected to the JTA and they are not members of the JTA in no way, shape or form. So make we just put that in its full context and clear that up. Make we continue. Cue the classic Jamaican political scene. One party says transparency, the other says tyranny. PM Holness, he's not amused. He addressed students at Michael University, saying this is about professionalism, not politics. When it comes to politician, everything is about politics. But Mark Smith ain't buying it, and neither is the Caribbean Union of Teachers, CTU, who came swinging like Rihanna at the Super Bowl. We stand with the JTA. The conflict boils. The education battlefield is now set. The JTA says the bill's focus is punishment, not progress. CTU says the legislation lacks fair consultation. Government insists it's time to weed out bad actors and uplift the profession. Now let's be honest. Teachers deserve protection from arbitrary firings, and students deserve competent educators. But when professionalization becomes politicization, who decides what good teaching really is? Is this about raising standards or raising control? And if teachers feel threatened, what happens to morale? Could this be part of a larger pattern where government wants to centralize more and more sectors under state control? Hold that thought. We're coming back to that. Stick up in right there and just think about that for a second. It seems like the government actually tries centralized power. For those who pay attention, you see, history has taught us that when you see a government make moves to centralize power, normally it leads to some form of dictatorship in the future. That is just where history have taught us and show us. So in order for you to have dictatorship, power has to be fully centralized at the heart and the center of the government. I'm always telling you, say, democracy is just dictatorship and totalitarianism under disguise, because democracy allows a government to turn into a dictatorship. It doesn't prevent it. So think about that for a second. In a democratic system, there's no rules were firmly put in place to prevent a dictatorship from happening. Trust me. There is no law set where, if you try to turn the country in a dictatorship, you'll go to prison. There is no law like that. Anyway, make we continue. The expert breakdown. Let's break it down politically. Holness needs a legacy win. His tenure has been rocked by corruption allegations, Integrity Commission drama, and the ever-growing frustration of public sector workers. Fixing education, that's a headline he wants. But if your fix alienates the very people you're trying to elevate, teachers, then is it a fix or just PR? Dr. Smith and the JTA want consultation, not coercion. And guess what? Consultation is not a meeting where one side already wrote the report. Meanwhile, parents are stuck in the middle. Students are confused, and Parliament, it's moving at the speed of pothole repairs. So here's the real danger. If this bill passes without reform, will we see mass teacher resignations? Could this bill spark a nationwide education strike? What if this bill isn't just a bill, but the beginning of a bigger push to silence organized voices in Jamaica's public sector? We'll be watching closely, and so should you. So keynote and pay attention to that, because there is more to this JTC bill than meets the eye. Meaning, we already see say them deep down them want put sprat education in the education system, because America and Canada are push them for do it. Them get paid for do it. $1.5 million through USAID. So they are paid to carry out certain things, but the government have to figure out how to go about it neatly and sneakingly through certain bills under the guise of professionalizing the sector. Because guess what? If the JTA go on board with this, the JTA and the teachers not have no more talk, then can't rebel. Them have to comply. So if they decide say, yo, you know this SPRAT curriculum have to now be incorporated in schools, and the teacher them have to go teach them about this stratification of the education system. The teacher them can't look out on it, they can't burn you out. Them have to just cooperate and go along with it. So you have to pay attention when you see certain things are happen. This bill is not as simple as it seems. So now the Ministry of Education with this bill would be like a dictator to the JTA and the teachers. It's really that simple. Here's a summary of the highlights and the key points. JTA President Dr. Mark Smith calls the JTC Bill a betrayal and too authoritarian. The bill proposes regulating teachers, but JTA and CTU say it lacks fairness and proper consultation. Conflict escalates between Holness, JTA, and opposition voices. Only 6 JTA affiliated teachers on council versus claims of 60% teacher representation. Expert analysis shows Holness may be seeking a legacy reform, but at what cost? Open questions remain. Will the bill pass without amendments? Will teachers protest? So let's hear what Dr. Mark Smith, JTA President, have to say. Listen up.
I often tell our political leaders that any attempt to talk about developing a knowledge-based economy without putting in the requisite investment in education is a fool's dream. You see, we don't talk about creating a knowledge-based economy and it leaps into reality. It is something that requires strategic investment in our greatest asset to make that turnaround, and that's our children and our teachers. And you can't disaggregate an investment in education from an investment in teachers. And so I call upon my principals, leaders within our schools, that even as we seek to improve the performance of our children, that we also understand that the individual's task with helping to nurture and develop these students need themselves to be supported in a wholesome way. I've seen teachers trying their best, going above and beyond the call of duty. Yesterday I went up to 2 schools, Clapham and slipping the other ones, Mississippi. In fact, we're Frisia. And when you got to those schools, you were driving for almost hours to get to that place, and when you got up, deep rural. But when you got there, amazing teaching and learning was happening. And that is what is usually lost in translation when people speak about a lot of the challenges we have with education cannot be fixed with the JTC Bill. It requires greater investment in education, greater investment in our human capital, greater investment in understanding that teachers must be at the center of any transformation of catapulting this country towards a more viable and sustainable economic reality.
So let's hear where the PM, Andrew Holness, have to say. Now listen up.
For far too long, we have not treated teaching with the professional regard it deserves. We have celebrated teachers in words, but not always supported them with the institutional structures that allow them to grow, thrive, and lead. That is why the government is pursuing the Jamaica Teaching Council legislation. And let me state this plainly, this is not an attempt to control teachers. It is a national effort to uplift, upgrade, and to use the term professionalize teaching in Jamaica. I'm not going to get too much involved. We have a Minister of Education who is very competent, and I do quite like the President of the JTA. He seems to be a reasonable person in his pronouncements. I didn't like this betrayal issue because there was at no time any attempt to in any way deceive or harm teachers. That's absolutely not the case. It was always a thorny issue, without question, because the JTA is, after everything else, a union for teachers. It is a union, a trade union, essentially for teachers. And I have no challenge with them advocating for what they see as the best option. But at the same time, there must be equal respect and understanding that the government has to advocate for all other stakeholders, many of whom do not have the institutional presence to advocate for themselves. I've heard this argument that this is going to cause a lot of teachers to leave the jurisdiction. And I did some research, and And I found out that most, if not all, the jurisdictions that our teachers would end up in have some form and even stronger regulations for professional requirements for teachers. Now, I listened keenly to the conversation and the concerns, and in our democracy, the government must always listen. So we listen. I don't like to use the word compromise because it just sends the signal of, watering down. But I think we can continue the dialogue and seek deeper understanding and appreciation of each other's concerns. There are schools where education is not happening, teaching is not happening, where those students will graduate and will not be able to contribute. And that is why it is so important that all the elements have to come together, and putting in place the professional standards and professional institutions for teaching, that is just one element of ensuring that we can really prepare our human resources to make the necessary contribution to development. We must not allow our development to be sacrificed at the altar of narrow political concern. We must think broader than individual interests, special interests, and look at what is in the national interest. There is a sense that artificial intelligence can replace the teacher. That teachers now don't even need to mark papers. They just feed it through a program, and the program says, yes, they got 30% of the required content, or they got 90% of the assignment. Yes, that might very well. So we now have a new tool that increases your efficiency. But the teacher is indispensable, because when a student comes to you in class and say, Miss, this is what I read, and I have checked the sources and it is correct, the next question for that student would be, yes, it may be factual. Is it right? And that is where context matters. And that is what your new job is going to be.
So we can see the PM make some subtle but strategic chess moves. I put certain things in place and I try centralize power. And that is something that should be a cause for concern, and that is something that everybody should pay attention to. This alarm where the JTA President and the entire JTA are raised hell over should not go unnoticed by Jamaicans. Don't make it go over your head. Pay attention, because we see in running high school say in want put in a media literacy curriculum in our schools, so the children can be taught to accept political lies and political propaganda from mainstream media outlets and sources, because they cannot control YouTube vloggers and TikTok vloggers and Instagram vloggers. We're too independent. We are very decentralized compared to the centralized mainstream media that has always been a political arm of the government, an extension of the government. So him actually are going at the schools to kill critical thinking in the minds of the youth, even though our education system does not promote or teaches critical thinking. From day one, it never do that. From day one, our education system has never taught us to be critical thinkers. What I want to know is, and the question I may ask, what is Prime Minister Andrew Holness really up to with all of these subtle movements? Because now we want to get the teachers under control. Because now the teacher them now attack. If you not do what the Ministry of Education say, should and if this JTC Bill come into effect, then the teachers and the JTA will become powerless. Them can't say nothing, them cannot fight back. Them have to do whatever the Ministry of Education says. Full on dictatorship. Now that no look nor sound good. Now you can get fired easily. Oh, you know what? Teach that sprat curriculum there in our classroom. Yeah, we replace you and get one teacher we're willing to do it. It's really that simple, you know. That's the real aim and objective. So me have to wonder if we're living under democracy, or we're under this dictatorship, or are we being prepped for some form of dictatorship? So the PM put everything in place for when that time comes. That I question I'm really ask. That is what I really want to know. Once you see a government that try centralized power, that normally related to or lead to some form of dictatorship. Yes, autocracy. If you found this video insightful, informative, or just a little too spicy to ignore, drop a like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next explosive breakdown. Let me know in the comments, do you think the JTC bill is about accountability, or is it just political control dressed up in green and gold? And hey, if you're a teacher, a parent, or just a proud Jamaican tired of political theater, share this video. The more eyes on this, the more pressure for change.